Hello again. Come in, sit down, let me regale you. I've just reached the end of my working contract in France. There are 7 days remaining in which I am technically employable in France, and after these 7 days I am basically in free fall. Sort of no visa, I'm just here on my passport, and it's empty. I feel empty and hollow, and it's just going to be a shallow sort of tourist existence. But I'm not feeling too anxious about it. I've sort of accepted how things have panned out. So what I'm going to talk about today is the difference in job interviews and job standards. For example, if you're hunting for work in Australia compared to in France. First of all, pardon me. First of all, the job industry in France is far more competitive than it is in Australia. In Australia, you start working at a younger age. Here in France, you start late. You have to do far more study and preparation before you are employable. Now, Australia does not prepare you to work overseas. You can go to university, do a good degree and things like that, but unless you're the sort who says, yes, I will be an engineer, and you do all of the work placements, you get lots of hands-on experience, you're not very employable abroad. I know a few success stories who left university at the end of just a bachelor's degree and walked into amazing jobs around the world. And these people are the sort of ones you have to hate, because they're those types that are really good looking, really charming, and just life just seems to love them and everything brilliant happens to them. They're those people. Maybe that's just an attitude or a state of mind, but some people are luckier than others. So, as I was saying, Australia does not prepare you for work abroad. In Australia, you begin working at about 14 years of age. And you will work in all sorts of stuff, just in shops, so like retail, fast food, cafes, the things you do when you're not really qualified to do anything. And so what happens is when you leave high school, you go to university, you're still going to be working the whole time you're in university. I had 2 jobs while I was at university. At one point I had 3 jobs. I was working 3 jobs. I had 2 jobs in high school even, while I was doing my exams and everything. It's just how it is there. Because in Australia, if you have a pumped up CV full of lots of work experience, that is far more important than all the degrees and masters and stuff you have. In Australia, if you have not worked before the age of 18, and say, let's imagine you reach 25 years old, you have a double major in business and economics and management and all this sort of anything, you won't find a job. You will not be employed. You're a 25-year-old child if you have a doctorate and you've not worked. You're just a 25-year-old child in the eyes of an Australian employer. In France, however, you could have worked many jobs, but if you don't have a piece of paper certifying that you've studied for 3 years on how to do that job, then you're no longer suitable for it. When I see job advertisements on the internet for jobs in France, they all say we want someone with this degree, speaks these languages, and has had 2 years professional experience in this. And when I talk to other uni graduates and people here searching for jobs, they'll say, yeah, we're all supposed to have had this degree and the experience, but no one gives us a job to help us get the experience. Which is why everyone in France is now doing, they do like a licence professionnelle, so they get to do hands-on experience with stuff, which is brilliant. That's very necessary in France. In Australia, not so much, because you can get a chance. You have a chance of finding work without qualifications in Australia. We are screaming out for immigration. We're screaming out for qualified workers because we have none. Our universities are we're pumping out graduates, but all the Australians are going overseas, and so we need people in Australia. We need qualified people in Australia. You get a job. Any of these kids I see coming out of like a back plus 2, 2 years extra high school, any of them could come to Australia and get awesome jobs, being paid 3 times more than would be here in France. So I come over here with my CV full of work experience, but only 1 measly degree. And so this is what I get. I walk into a job interview and they have their piece of paper here. So they've got their paper and they're saying, if they're interviewing 2 people that day, this is how I feel. Okay, I'm going to reenact this for you. So the person before me comes in. This is the person before me. They are one of those amazing people that has 2 degrees and work experience. They say, oh yes, James Bond, former SAS, served in Afghanistan and Iraq. Very impressive. Awarded Medal of Valor in Afghanistan and the Falkland Wars. Very good. You speak fluent French and Russian. Prone to working alone. Tell me about this. That would be a very good interview for them. That person is clearly brilliant.
You're all going to die down here.
Then I walk in. They look at my CV. They think, oh yeah, Kyle, closet wanker, loitered around Hurstville and Rockdale, ran into trouble in Poland for being a wuss, prone to listening to Deftones and crying when drunk. Do you see the gap between the first interviewee and then myself? And that's what it's like every time I walk into like a job interview here in France. I just get massacred. That aside, there is the hurdle I have to jump. Not just me. I found out everyone in the same position has had to jump this hurdle too. Of the French visa and European work laws. I'm not going to beat myself up about it because me trying to take on French administration would be like me trying to storm the Bastille with a toothpick. It's impenetrable. French admin. So I was in Paris just last week and I spoke to a colleague who was working up at Lycée Georges Turin, something like that, I forget. Georges de la Tour, that's the one. Venezuelan. As soon as he got here, he was on a mission to stay in France. And he figured out the only way to do this is A, marry a French girl, B, sign up for university. The cunning little bastard did both. He has affianced a French girl from the church he goes to, and he's also successfully enrolled in the Université de Lorraine. Great for him. And technically you'd think that's the battle won. I can go to the préfecture, get my carte de séjour changed, and I can stay. Oh no. Problem for me and him, and another Australian I'm about to talk about, is that we are all here on working visas, and they can't give us a student carte de séjour without a student visa. So he has had to go home anyway. So he has to go home for 7 months to Venezuela. That's about as long as we've been here. It sucks for him, but he's taken it on the chin. He's like, yep, this is what I've got to do, and off he's gone. I'm still waiting to hear from another colleague, an Australian, who just got a job in Metz. Doing the same thing. He's using the student loophole. He's applied for a student visa. No. He's enrolled in university as a student, and so that would, get him a visa, and then this company's been able to hire him because they don't have to go through Direction du Travail to get him approved and legalised. However, I just found out that he has had to book himself a ticket home to Australia to go home, get a new visa from the French consulate in Australia, and come back. So even if I had gotten a job here, I wouldn't have been able to take it. I still would have had to go home, fuck about back there, and come here. And I don't know where I'm supposed to get the thousands of dollars that would cost me. So I'm not upset. There was just no way. I've done everything I could. If I had to go home and I felt like maybe I'd sort of copped out or given up, then I'd feel like I'd failed. But I've chased every avenue, every option, and it was just impossible for me from the start. This is kind of a weight off my shoulder. So, my adventures will continue elsewhere. I'm going to apply for a British visa because Australians get cool visas to Great Britain. I'm going to do that, chase some English girls around. Should be fun. Have a beautiful day.